Okay, welcome to part 2 of your notes. Today we're going to talk about evolution. We're going to keep talking about evolution. We're going to talk about natural selection, which is a really important part of evolution. Okay, so just a little bit of humor on this front page, and then you need to make sure, let's see, let me get my pen started. I would keep this, I would keep this mental image here of the two moths in your mind, because we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. Let's see, let's do blue. Now let's try. Nope. Okay. Apparently pen's not working today. Alright, so the three learning targets we're going to hit today. Number 1, understand the mechanisms of natural selection. So how does it work? What is it? Number 2, explain how fitness is affected by the environment and human activities. This was hit really well, so I'm not going to go too much into it, but it was hit really well in the video that we watched in class. And then also the importance of variation. So how does variation play into this whole natural selection thing? And 6, understand the limits to evolution. So first, when you hear evolution, the name that probably pops in your mind when you think about who came up with this idea is Darwin. Okay, so Darwin, we'll talk about him in the next slide. However, we need to talk about a couple of scientists that were really important to shaping Darwin's ideas. Okay, just like how we talked about Mendel and Watson and Crick, and how there were other scientists that were really important in helping the discovery of these important concepts like DNA, or in this case, evolution. So first one we're going to talk about is Lyell. That's this guy that you see on the right. Lyell was a scientist. He was actually a geologist. A geologist is someone who studies rocks and minerals and the history of the earth. Okay, and what Lyell proposed was, just like how we have floods, how we have earthquakes, how there's soil erosion, all of these things that we see nowadays, Lyell's thought was, you know what? They happen nowadays, they probably happened in the past, and that is what has shaped the earth. So if you think of, if you've ever driven out in the West, particularly in Utah, there's lots of very beautiful stone features, these just big stone things that stick out in the middle of the earth, and they have fun shapes, and it's because of erosion over time. It's just leaving the harder rocks, the rocks that are erosion resistant, if you will. Okay, then there's Lamarck. Lamarck, his thought was, the best way to explain it, oh, by the way, that's this guy in the bottom left corner. The easiest way to explain it is if you take a look at the pictures of the giraffes. Let me see if I can't get the pen to work. Then I can actually draw. Okay, there we go. Alright, so Lamarck's view was that, there was this original ancestor of a giraffe. Okay, a giraffe is it's a good example, so, and that's what we'll talk about. Okay, original giraffe with a short little neck. And as food got scarcer, this giraffe was stretching its neck longer and longer, and continually stretching it until its neck got longer. That is able to pass along to its offspring until eventually the giraffes, because of their ancestors stretching their necks and stretching them longer, that the offspring then would have longer necks. That's incorrect, because we know evolution does not happen. Individuals do not evolve. Okay, a population and a species will evolve. However, this thought was important in helping shape Darwin's ideas. Lamarck, by the way, his kind of the overall theme of his research that he presented to the scientific community is that the selective use and disuse of organs is passed on. We know now that the only things that are passed on are things that are found in, or traits that are found in the gametes. at least for sexually reproducing organisms. Okay, so the difference here, if you take a look, this is Darwin and Wallace's view. Wallace is another scientist. We're not really going to talk much about him, but you can definitely look him up if you're interested. Cool stuff. Okay, so Darwin's thought here was that, okay, we have a population, and in the population we have all this variation. So we have some giraffes with short necks, some giraffes with medium necks, and some giraffes with long necks. And what happens is natural selection selected for the individuals that have the longer necks because they're able to reach more food. Since they're able to reach more food because it's up taller, up higher, in the trees, since they're able to reach more food, they don't die from starvation. Because they don't die from starvation and they have access to the food up on a higher level, then they're able to pass on their genes to their offspring. Okay, so it's not an individual, it's not the individual stretching their muscles, stretching their necks, and then passing that on to their offspring, but it's just this idea of this population, how we all have different characteristics, and natural selection selected for the characteristic of a longer neck because they were able to eat more and pass that on. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Darwin. Okay, Darwin is very well known, very famous for his book Origin of Species, and it's in this book where he pretty much gathered all of his data and proposed the theory of evolution. Okay, basically what the Origin of Species, what Darwin proposed is that individuals differ. Okay, individuals are different, and that natural selection is going to favor differences that best fit that environment. Kind of like how puzzle pieces are all, if you have a good one, puzzle pieces are all shaped differently, just a little bit differently, and the puzzle piece that fits is the puzzle piece that you select, that goes into the puzzle. Okay, so a natural selection, we just use that example with the giraffes. Okay, individuals differ, their lengths of necks. It's just a genetic variation. Okay, the phenotype is a little bit longer neck, a little bit shorter neck, and whichever best fits the environment, which happen to be the long neck ones, because they can reach higher and eat more food, then that's what's going to be passed on. Darwin realized that variations in heritable traits is a prerequisite for evolution. Now, the cool thing about this is that Darwin published, I guess, this book, if you will, The Origin of Species, a few years before Mendel published his findings, his work about the pea plants and the laws of inheritance. So Darwin knew that there had to be some kind of heritable traits, but he didn't know how, okay, because Mendel hadn't come out yet with his thoughts, and of course it took a little while for that to be accepted. Alright, now what is natural selection? It's a struggle for existence. Why is it a struggle? Because life's not fair and there's just not enough resources. Some survive, some don't. When there's this struggle for existence. Now, granted, there are times when an environment's going to have a lot of resources. Once there's lots of resources, you're going to see an increase, and we'll get more into this when we talk about ecology. Okay, you're going to see an increase in the population. However, you're going to hit the carrying capacity of that environment, and then you're going to see this struggle. Okay, you're going to see natural selection occur. Survival of the fittest, we've already talked about briefly. Survival of the fittest does not mean survival of the biggest, strongest, coolest of the organisms. What it means is that those with the best adaptations, like the giraffes, the longer necks had a better adaptation to survive in their environment. Since they survive, they're able to reproduce and pass those genes on. Unequal success in reproduction is going to lead to gradual change in characteristics. So reproduction, sexual selection is going to lead to gradual changes, and we'll get more into that a little bit later. Then there's this concept of descent with modification. You need to understand what it means is that living species have descended, okay, with changes from other species. So in other words, species that we have now came from some other species but they've changed a little bit. And we have a whole section on notes where we talk about species and speciation. Just as descent with modification means that these species come from previous species. They just have been modified. They've been changed a little bit. They've gone through natural selection. Okay, now cheetahs. I love talking about cheetahs because they're awesome, and they're a really great example for several things, so I'm sorry, get used to it. We're going to talk about cheetahs a lot in this unit. Alright, there are some limits to natural selection. Those limits to natural selection is that selection can only edit existing variations. So what does that mean? Well, it means, for example, in the giraffe necks, it can only pick a characteristic or a length of neck that's already present in the population. Okay, for example, here with the cheetahs, okay, a cheetah might run faster if it had alleles that made it run faster, the faster alleles. Okay, but if the faster alleles are not present in the population from mutation or from gene flow, then evolution in this direction will not happen. Okay, it has to select from pre-existing variations, natural selection. Next bullet is constraints due to history. What does that mean? Well, if you think about the cheetah, okay, perhaps if you had a different arrangement of leg muscles and bones, it would enable the cheetahs to run faster. However, the basic body form of the cheetah, of this mammal, is already laid out in their genes and development in such a way that it's unlikely to be altered. Okay, there really may be no way to get there from here. Okay, so in other words, you've already gone through this natural selection, selecting for traits that allow for this build for the cheetah to survive and to fit into its niche. It's going to be pretty hard to find something new. Okay, then trade-offs. This picture here, okay, that maybe if we changed the length of the legs so that gives them a longer stride for the cheetahs, there's going to be a trade-off where if we make their legs longer, the trade-off is probably going to be that the legs are more fragile, so they're more likely to break as they're running, or if they hit something, or if their prey kicks them, it's going to be more likely to break. Okay, it's a trade-off. Let's see what else. So, they may be able to run faster, but it's not going to increase their fitness for their niche, because they're going to die or they're going to get broken legs and they're not going to be able to chase something down. Okay, so these are kind of like these limits of natural selection or of evolution. We're constrained to what's already present. You can't select something that's not already in the gene pool. Constraints due to history, that history is already evolved this individual organism to fit, pretty, if not perfectly, but pretty darn close to perfectly in their niche. It's going to be kind of difficult to find something new to evolve something new that is better than what's already been selected for. Okay, and then trade-offs and changes. If you change something like the leg length, then you're going to make it more fragile. It's a trade-off. Okay, and that, my friends, is it for part 2.